The overwhelming majority was for the 1911 holster. I think I paid right at market value for this holster. I paid about 30 bucks, I think. It is an original Vietnam era 1911 holster. I don't think it's particularly valuable. I wanted to get one that was in a little rough shape that needed a restoration. That's what I got. I think I'm in pretty good shape here. There is some stitching that upon a much closer inspection to it, there's some stitching coming out down on the toe, which I need to reshape anyway. There is some stitching coming out down at the bottom here, and a little back here. And there's just some scattered spots where there's some stitching coming loose that I need to repair. I might as well just blow it all apart, replace all the stitching that needs replacing, which is just about all of it. Quite frankly, I want to see what this holster is made of. Like I said, I think there's some steel bits in there. I do have 2 copper rivets that I'm going to need to cut off. Excuse me. And I do have rivets to replace them with, so that's not a problem. And we're just going to basically shine her up and make her look nice. If anybody knows where I can get a stamp to re-stamp the US on here, I would appreciate it. I've looked everywhere I can think of, and every time I find one that I think I can get, they're no longer making them. So, anyone's help is appreciated. I would like to be able to stamp the Cathy Industries on the back again with that number, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. But if I could get that US again, I'd really, really like to get that on there. I will use this holster because I'm a 1911 guy. So, all that said, this is nylon thread, so I'm not going to be real picky about my thread. Not super picky anyway. I do have some that is going to be real comparable to what this is. And since everybody seemed to vote for it, I did get one comment that said he was going to vote for the P08 holster, the Luger holster, until he saw the rest of the comments for the 1911 holster. So, one comment said to blow it apart, and that's what I'm figuring to do. So, I'm going to cut these 2 rivets off camera, just because it's going to get noisy and messy, but I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to take it all apart. Got a cutting mat down here so you can hopefully see a little better what I'm doing. Always use a blade when you're cutting these stitches that you're comfortable using. I happen to be pretty comfortable with this. I am going to snap it off so I got a fresh edge. I keep this on my bench. Just an old pill bottle, Tylenol bottle or something. Just a good place to put your old blades, that way nobody can get hurt with them. So I think probably a good place to start is let's get this back piece off. I like to use my belly sometimes to very stiff. don't want to damage the leather, so if I put the screwdriver in here to pry it apart a little bit, I know it's hampering your view, but well, there's one bit. Should make it a little easier to pop the other side. There. Now, there's another stitch line up under here. And that's reinforced apparently, right around there. This leather is extremely dry. Makes you wonder sometimes how they get that on there. Let's try to go along here. That piece out, maybe it'll give me just that much more room to squeak this out. I don't think so though. I think when the leather is more pliable, it's easier to get stuff in and out of here. Well, I may have to get something to moisturize that, which may wind up being neat's foot oil on this one. That is super duper dry. I'm actually kind of, you can see how it's wrinkling there. I don't dare try to bend it any more than that. Yeah, we'll leave that. I'll put some neat's foot oil on there and try to moisturize that enough to get it to flex a little. Get the rest of this apart, which isn't much more to it really. The main seam here. that's one piece of leather. There's one piece that goes and kind of bridges this right by the trigger guard here. An interesting piece. Alright, now I should be able to just go along the rest of this. Here's that stiffener piece that was in the toe, just kind of setting in there for where the lanyard went through. Interesting. And then this is like a little welt. I'm going to keep this over here. I'm going to start knocking that little bit of stuff off the bench over there. It's just a welt piece that goes in the toe. Kind of interesting. Very interesting. Now let's get this other little piece out. And this is just that piece that bridges over here. This actually has a little bit of glue on it. Or at least appears to. Of course, looking at that wad of stitching here, right here, by my finger, that kind of looks like they might have glued it in there because it was coming apart. There we go. So, kind of funny, but that's the way stuff is done sometimes. Like I said, it looked like there was threads coming out there, and they were. So, we'll get to that in a bit. This piece is where I thought there was some metal here. And I thought there might be some here, but there's not. It's just very rigid leather. Because it is pretty thick. This is probably, oh, maybe 10-11 ounce leather. It's pretty heavy duty. So let's cut this apart and see, because that's, you can see that it's kind of built up in here. And that holds your gun in there really nice. But I'm kind of eager to see now. What is in there? I'm betting it's just leather. My God, it's plastic. It's a piece of plastic in there. That is pretty stinking awesome. I think I'm going to have to try to replicate that out of leather so that I have a piece to go off of what if I ever need to replace one. That is pretty cool. I like that. Get the rest of this off. There we go. So that other piece is out. That's pretty neat. They must have, I'm sure they probably kind of wet formed that around that plastic, because that piece fits in there so well. Pretty interesting. The only other piece of leather in here is around the button stud. And I'm imagining that this is probably a riveted button stud. Which I won't remove if I don't have to. Everything around it seems to be in pretty good shape, so I'm not going to take it out. I will take measurements. That way if I do ever have to replace one, I will have the measurements. And there's that piece. And it is riveted. I will clean that up and try to stop that corrosion that's happening in there. Any of that green, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but the green is just corrosion from the brass. And there's a little bit around the front here too, so we're going to try to stop all that. Basically, that's our pile of parts. Let me get these. So we have the holster body, the welt from the toe, piece that covered the back of the button stud, our plastic piece from the inside by the trigger guard, and the piece of leather that covered that. This piece went around this piece, which hooks onto your web belt. Went around the inside of that to give a little more strength to this part of the holster where it goes around your where this hangs from. I did notice most of these that I've seen don't have a roller on it. This one's actually a roller setup. So I do need to moisturize this. Oh, and there's this this piece from the toe of the holster where the lanyard goes through. And it sat in there, I believe it sat in there this way, not this way. So it sat this way, this hole allowed it to drain, and then it drained from here. So it wasn't really for a lanyard, more of a drain. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Matter of fact, you can tell by the way this line goes here that this piece sat in there just like this. It's always interesting when you take apart a holster like this to see how everything was put together back when it was made. Now this Vietnam era would have been made most likely in the 60s. So it's not terribly old. Probably in my lifetime maybe. But I've got a lot of thread here to pick out. I need to do a little cleaning on some of these pieces. This is just dirty, is all. And it's just because it was inside the holster. This is just regular 91% isopropyl alcohol. It will probably remove some of the finish, which is fine, because some of this is going to get re-dyed anyway. And it's all going to get some neat's foot oil, so this will help to open up the pores so the oil soaks in a little better. But I'm just gonna wipe her down here. And this is what I use too to take off when you have severe boot polish and stuff like that. The isopropyl will take that polish off as well without ruining the leather too bad. And it'll usually leave the dye intact, which you'll see here as soon as it dries off here, the actual dye will still be intact here. So the color is still there. And here I can see that there's some polish and stuff in there. Which the alcohol should pull that polish out. The way you know that it's done its job is that finish will get really dull. This might wind up completely stripped by the time it's done. Whatever is on there is getting really tacky and really kind of nasty. So that'll take a little bit more work. For neat's foot oil, I just keep a little rag here. And I can just kind of wipe it on there. I don't usually try to go on the inside here. In this case I am, just because of how dried out it is. get as much penetration here as I can. When I make new holsters, a lot of times I'll oil those before I dye them. The dye tends to really suck moisture out of the leather. If I oil first, the dye seems to penetrate better. And it kind of puts that moisture in there before you start. And before everything goes together, I will make some patterns of all these pieces, I hope. To do this piece, I need to get it to lay pretty flat. So I'm hoping that this oil is going to soak in good and allow me to do that. Got most of that surface stuff off. Now I'm just going to pluck the rest of the threads. I have gotten holsters in for repair before that have been just stitched over, or they've just stitched over the old thread. Aside from being extremely unprofessional, it just doesn't, it's just not cool. And I don't know if that's, field repairs or maybe just the way that they were done way back when, or what the deal was. One was not even a very old repair, it was a fairly recent repair. Done by somebody else. I do try to take pride in my work, and I like to have a job well done. And the 1911 holster is something that's kind of close to my heart, I guess. I guess I'd say that. When I'm done with this one, I may take it up and show my father-in-law. I have a project on my list that I have to do. I'm going to be making a rifle case. Well, it's going to be for a shotgun, actually. It's going to be kind of a special one. It is for a friend of mine. I'm just wondering if you want to come along for that ride or not. be using an artificial, a faux wool lining on it. And a very nice Crazy Horse leather. The leather is actually something that I got for myself. But when somebody wants something special, you kind of will give it up. Alright, I'm not going to make you watch anymore. And I'm going to end the disassembly video. Well, no, I'm not. I'll come back in a few minutes when I'm ready to oil this thing up. Before I oil this, there's some things I want to try to straighten out a little. All of this is there's a crease that runs around here. And I think I've got to get a wider crease, or I'll probably have to get an adjustable one. I don't have one for this wide of a crease. That's probably, I'm going to guess, about 1/8 of an inch. Yep. And I don't have one that big. So what I'm going to do right now is, this is going to have to be all the parts that I want to try to get to lay flatter. I'm just going to wet them down a bit. And I'm going to go in here with my slicker and just try to convince it to lay back out. And it usually works out pretty well. Just got a little squirt bottle. Getting it wet, a little pressure. Now, chances are it's going to roll back over again, but this will go into my collection anyway. And I'm working on restoring a Remington Rand 1911. So that gun will go with this holster. When it's done, it'll be a while. Still collecting parts for it. I have the frame, and that's about where I'm at right now. Some of the internals, I've got a few parts for it, but it's a long process on that one. Little persuasion. don't want to persuade too much, but I want it to kind of flatten out a little bit. Wet enough that it's getting pretty pliable. That's good. Oh, my wife must be home. I hear my dog. I think what I want to do at this point is let it rest. Pretty much get the toe straightened out. It's not going to get perfect because it was tweaked up for quite a while. That leather is stretched to conform to what it was, so it's not going to get perfect. We'll see what happens when it dries. Leather will shrink a little as it dries, so we may or may not have what we're looking for. I may put a little weight on there to see if that'll help. Then we'll start on the, I guess on the reassembly. Everything else is ready to go. Otherwise, I'll be patterning. I'll probably do that off camera. You don't need to see all that. Making patterns and all that. And like I think I mentioned in the beginning, if anybody knows where I can find a US stamp, I know the other stamp maker can make it for me, but I need to find the images to send them and the dimensions and all that I can send them to make that. I don't have all of that. I certainly wish that I did. I can get dimensions off of here, but as far as the rest, I don't have it. And I would need it. So, any help anybody can be with that is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Well, there you go. That's the end of part 1. Comments, suggestions, whatever you got, drop it down in the comments section. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, ring that bell for notifications of my next video. And stay tuned for the rest of the 1911 holster build, or series on the restoration of this holster. It's going to be a doozy. I think this holster is going to come out fantastic. So, that being said, y'all stay safe. God bless. Thanks for watching my videos. I really appreciate it.